You're listening to Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi, covering Mississippi State sports like nobody else. With Sports Talk Mississippi's Brian Hadad and Robbie Falk of On3 Sports. Now get ready for Thunder and Lightning.
This is Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Brian Hadad and... No, it's not. You're wondering. You're like, did Robbie shave? Is he certainly younger? I don't know what's going on over there. No, that's Sam Sklar from the Jackson Clarion-Ledger. Couldn't get Robbie on the podcast tonight, but Sam was kind enough to step in. He'll be in the bullpen for us here today. Thank you for being here, Sam. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in here to Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks to all our great listeners out there, especially our servicemen out there taking care of us. I want to thank our sponsors over at Strange Brew Coffee House and Churn and Spoon Ice Cream. Start your day the right way with a trip to the drive-thru over at Strange Brew Coffee House here in Starkville. Or at Brupolo over in Tupelo. It'd be a little weird, Sam, if Brupolo was in Branyon.
That would be a little weird.
Yeah. I was wondering. Yes.
I get it. I got it.
Wherever you are in our great state, you can enjoy Strange Brew Coffee each and every morning. It's just a click away at strangebrewcoffeehouse.com. The Mississippi Beef Council wants to remind you that beef, it's what's for dinner. If you're cooking out this weekend, nothing beats the sizzle of beef on the grill. If you're not cooking out, well, we have so many great steakhouses there in the state of Mississippi. You just can't go wrong. No matter what you're doing this weekend, make sure a steak is part of your plans. You'll feel better, and quite honestly, so will I. Beef, it's what's for dinner, thanks to our friends at the Mississippi Beef Council. College Corner, collegecornerstore.com is the place to find the maroon and white merchandise that you are looking for. I know that you're looking for it. Whatever you're looking for, like, this great polo right here with the state script logo on it. You can get these at College Corner. You can get the M over S. You can get the interlocking. You can get the banner M, but I'll look at you funny if you do. Don't do that. Just don't do it. 2 locations in the Jackson area, originally by Fleet Feet, Flowwood by the Half Shell, or you can shop online, collegecornerstore.com. Restaurant Tyler, Starkville's flagship restaurant for lunch, dinner, Sunday brunch. The best meal in town is at Restaurant Tyler. You a fan of Restaurant Tyler?
I have actually not been.
Sam,
sorry.
What are we doing with our life here?
I've got so many on my checklist that I have.
This week, you and I are going to go get lunch at Restaurant Tyler. You let me know the day, and we're going.
We should.
Right.
It's been on my list, actually.
That should have been at the top. That should have been what was the first place on the list? Don't say it. Don't even say. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. I want to know who gave you a list, though, that didn't have Restaurant Tyler number 1. Who was that?
I don't really know. Well, there wasn't really like a number 1 on the list. It was kind of like, here's a few.
It's like I know Stefan, the man you took over for, would have told you Restaurant Tyler was high on the list. So okay. I'm going to find out. I'm going to dig into this, and I'm going to find out who did you wrong.
Yes.
I won't steer you wrong. We'll go grab lunch this week at Restaurant Tyler. Priority One Bank, 16 locations to serve you throughout Central Mississippi. Let PriorityOneBank.com be your guide to show you not only how you can, not only where they're located, but how they're going to help you invest, manage your money, and prepare for the future. Now more than ever, when you have questions about your money, you need answers. You need them on your schedule. You need a bank that provides a level of service like Priority One Bank. Let Priority One Bank make you their priority. Are you a Disney adult? I'm looking at your shirt.
Yeah, you like it? It's Mickey Mouse.
I knew that's why I asked the question. Are you a Disney adult?
Honestly, not really.
You're not really an adult yet, to be honest with you.
24. I turned 24 like a week and a half ago.
I know. Yes, I wish you happy birthday.
Yes. So. I got this in Disney World like 2-3 years ago. I was there with my family over Christmas.
I can't get into Disney. I just can't.
It was with like a ton of family members.
Okay.
So it was a great time.
All right.
But
that's good. Well, hopefully.
Do I watch Disney movies? Not really. No.
Okay. Good man. So I don't know if this time will equal that. We'll try to have a good time here on Thunder and Lightning. Again, I want to thank Sam for joining me here. It's kind of late on a Sunday evening. I had some family in town, and Robbie was just like, no. He's like, I'm tired. I can't. Robbie has really been working hard with our friend Paul Jones on the shelf. Want to continue to wish Paul to get well soon. Hopefully, he's going to be back with us Tuesday night when we're at the Hump to watch Mississippi State play on Texas. Well, you and I were at the Hump on Saturday for Mississippi State and LSU. A game that it feels like these last 4 or 5 games, every time I describe them, like it's a must-win, but not really, right? If they keep losing, it doesn't matter. They're still going to the tournament. But it felt like at some point they needed just to get some positive momentum going, and they really got that on Saturday with, I thought, a really strong second half. Obviously, Josh Hubbard is a big piece of that, but they were down most of that first half, as you know, and they came back and really dominated in the second half, really cranked up defensively, made some adjustments. Chris Jans talked about that in the postgame, and they get a good win over LSU. 81-69 is the final score. They needed a win. They played well enough in the second half to get that win. Do you think, like, when you watch this team play, do you think they're about to maybe? I'm not saying make a deep run into March because I can't. This team is so inconsistent. I can't predict that.
Yeah.
But can they win these next couple of games and get into March with some momentum?
I think to that question, yes, because I think that the schedule plays out nicely where they play, Texas and Arkansas to close the regular season.
Yeah.
And, Arkansas just got blown out at South Carolina, so who knows what they're going to be.
That game in the media area, and we were just like shaking. What was the stat you gave me at one point? Was that Arkansas at one point had more turnovers than made shots?
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
And that's not early in the game. That was like 6 minutes to go.
Early second half, something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Just brutal. But yeah, can they win these next two games? Absolutely. And I think there's a pretty good chance they're favored in both of those
I would think so.
games. Maybe not at Arkansas, but we'll see. It'll be close. But
depends on what happens with Arkansas. I don't know who they play Tuesday off the top of my head.
I don't know either. But
what if I had a device that could tell us that? Go ahead, though.
But this team's just been so up and down. Like you said, every time they win two games and they lose two games. And, I think the biggest thing for me is that it just seems like there's a very hard kind of cap on this team.
Yeah.
And I always kind of go back to, and the numbers have maybe changed in the last 24, 48 hours, but after Saturday, Mississippi State was, I think, 0-7 against teams in the top 14, top 15 in the net, and then 20-2, I think, against everyone else. I mean, they beat everyone else, but they just lose to the good teams. So that's kind of why it's like, well, I think they can win a game in March, but are they going to make a deep run?
It's so matchup dependent. If they play a team, like whoever they draw, I'm going straight to the web and be like, what does this team shoot from three? And if it's like 37, I'm like, well, I know how I'm filling out my bracket. I know that then I'm not going to pick Mississippi State. Arkansas is at Vanderbilt
That's a tough play.
That's Tuesday night. That's a 9 Eastern tip. So that's 9 local. Oh gosh, that's brutal. Vanderbilt they've secured their place in the dance. They're playing really good basketball. They had another good win this weekend over Missouri. So that's going to be a tough one for the Hogs. And then if they lose that game at that point, I don't think they can get in, even with a win over Mississippi State. They'd have to win like 3 or 4 games in Nashville. So you might catch Arkansas at a point where they're just like, eh. And, that's the best case scenario for State. And then, of course, they have Texas, who will be battling for their tournament. I didn't see. Do you know who won Texas, Georgia? I haven't.
They lost, I'm pretty sure, like big. I have to double check. Double check it for me. Because I was not watching it, but I think I saw that they lost. Like on their home floor.
Yeah, they did. They lost by 17.
Yeah, it was like a blowout.
I know that I was seeing some stuff on Twitter today about Rodney Terry. He'll probably be the only coach in the SEC that gets canned this year because it's with LSU saying they're going to stand behind McMahon for another year, which I don't understand. But whatever, that's not the LSU is looking at it going, we're going to have to pay Brian Kelly $50 million next year. We got to save where we can.
Exactly.
It's only so many children's hospitals we can. I don't want to get you in trouble. Robbie and I can make that joke. I'll save you the expense. Hubbard was outstanding on Saturday, especially in the second half, where it felt like State really needed him to have that kind of game so they could just get control. He hit some big shots. Once again, really good from inside the three-point arc. Aggressive, trying to get his own shot, set up his teammates. And I thought Cam Matthews played well. The stat line, only 7 points, but the number I keep looking at with Cam Matthews is turnovers. If he has 1 or 2 turnovers, it probably means State won the game because the ball's in his hand so much. But when he has these 4 and 5 turnover games, it's a problem. I think he had 7 points, 7 rebounds, 3 turnovers. He had a funny basket. You and I were laughing at the end where LSU basically just did not realize it was a 1-and-1. Right. And it was Hubbard, right? Misses the free throw?
I can't remember.
I think it was Hubbard. He misses the free throw. LSU's just standing there, so Cam just takes the ball and lays it in.
Like you're in fifth
grade. Like, it's a 1-and-1, guys. What are we doing here? I thought he played well. And then Riley Kugel, if you listen to Friday's podcast, we talked about Kugel, Melendez, and Harris. Some combination of those guys have to step up. It was Kugel in this one. Only took 6 shots, but made 5 of them. Was much better defensively in the second half. And again, Jans talked about LSU was doing something on offense in the first half they had not scouted for, that they did not see on tape. And when they made their adjustments in the second half, Cam Carter goes from can't miss to can't make. And Kugel played a big role in that. They don't all have to play well for State, right? You don't have to get Melendez and Harris and Kugel each giving you 12, 15 points. You don't even have to have 2 of them if one of them is going to play well, somebody has just got to compliment Hubbard and usually Keyshawn Murphy. Keyshawn was not his normal self in this one, but they got decent numbers out of the 5 position. I think they got 17 and 13 total, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Kugel was really, really good. When his first 2 shots go in, you know it's going to be a good game for Riley Kugel. He has to lock in early.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part that Jan said after the game was that, Kugel's really had a really nice 2-3 weeks leading up to that game,
Right.
kind of behind the scenes, in his head. And that's kind of but it wasn't showing up in the box score yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
And, that's the sort of thing that you and I and the fans and the people watching the games don't know because we're not.
We don't see the
in locker
practices,
room,
right?
and we're not there.
Right.
So that, can he build off of that and start to string together some consistent games? I wouldn't bet on it, but I think it could happen. And if it does, then that's a huge X factor for this team.
Hubbard Saturday and Hubbard against Alabama are the 2 best individual performances of the season, I think. But Kugel against Ole Miss here and Kugel at Memphis. Were you at the Memphis game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Incredible.
Those were 2 really good games. Those were 2 games where you saw the best of Riley Kugel. At this point, I can't tell you that I expect to get the best of Riley Kugel every week. If I can get 65 to 70% of his best, though, that's enough for State to win some games and advance to the second weekend in March, assuming that Hubbard and Murphy has gotten to the point with me where I'm expecting double digits from him. I expect him to be around 12, 15 points, 7 to 10 rebounds. And he wasn't that on Saturday, but it didn't matter. But if you're getting that and you get Hubbard as Hubbard and Kugel can give you 12 or 15 efficient points. Now, if he's, what was he against Alabama? He was like 5 of 17 or I forget what game it was. Maybe it was that was the Oklahoma game. It was 5 of 17. I can't have that.
No.
But I can have if I can get 5 of 6 Kugel, I'll take that all day. I thought this was a very efficient is a word that kind of gets thrown around a lot in basketball nowadays. You're talking about efficiency. This was a good example, especially the second half. The second half was an efficient performance. State was the better team. They squeezed LSU. They controlled the game. They got the buckets they needed, and they made what was looking like it was going to be a tough game. It turned it into a relatively easy victory.
Yeah, I think the tough part about this team is, we talk about those 3 players, Kugel, Melendez, and Harris, and how they're just kind of the X factors of this team, and we just all know that at this point.
Right.
But we never know which one is going to have the good game.
Right.
You don't really know until the game starts, and okay,
yeah,
it's impossible.
And it feels like in the first 5 minutes.
Yes.
Like Melendez hits a couple shots. Okay, it's him tonight. Yeah.
It's just impossible to predict, which I guess could be an advantage for Mississippi State, but at the same time, maybe a disadvantage because coaches like to know what they're going to get.
I think they'd rather have some consistency. Yeah,
and you just don't get that, and so it's just really tough. And that's been one of the biggest questions. I think since the start of SEC play that we've been asking, and I think Jans is trying to figure out too, is how you get any of those players to consistently, perform on that level, and it's just isn't always there.
It isn't. That's been the issue with this team all year is they're not inconsistent. We won't say that because they're 20-9, right? They've won a lot more than they've lost. The problem is when they are bad, they're really bad.
Oh yeah.
And then when they're good enough, but they haven't had a game where they just blew. A&M is probably the closest one where they just dominated the game, especially in the second half. But that was they were down at the end of the first half. The Ole Miss game that was here, State dominated for most of the first half, but then Ole Miss was able to claw back in. Honestly, their 2 best wins of the year, in my opinion, are at Ole Miss and at Memphis. Those were 2 games where they were behind early against Ole Miss, but they got the lead and never relinquished it, I think, midway through the first half. Yeah. Memphis, they led the entire game. They were never in trouble in that one. That is honestly, when you consider it's a true road win against a non-conference. State's got players who are Hubbard and Matthews, Murphy, Melendez, and Kugel probably. They've all played at the Pavilion, right? Nobody had played at FedEx. That's an NBA arena. It's possible to come in there with the bright lights and be like, I can't believe I'm playing here.
Yeah.
And they were dominant in that game. So that's State's road and neutral site record this year gives me some hope that when we get to, I guess now 2 weeks from now, they have a chance to maybe do something.
And I think it's interesting because some of those early wins in the non-conference haven't really aged super well.
No, Utah
like the
and
big wins against Pitt,
Pitt.
SMU.
Yeah.
I think they're both going to miss the tournament now. And Utah, did Utah fire their coach or
They did fire their
they
coach.
fired their
Yeah.
coach? And
Yeah.
that was a big win too at the time. Memphis has obviously aged very well.
Memphis has been okay. Yeah.
And I mean the road win at Vanderbilt has aged very well for them too.
You can make a strong case that that's their best win. So Utah has dropped. They actually went up 11 spots this week in the net. They're up to 64. So that is a quad 2 win for State because it was on a neutral site.
Right.
Pitt, which was I think was like 5th in the net when they came.
It was ridiculous.
It
made no sense at the time.
They're at 60 now.
Yeah.
I mean, they are 16-13. I don't think they were undefeated, but they only had like one loss when they came to Starkville.
Yeah, it was something.
What was the other
like
one
that.
you talked about? SMU. Southern, so that'd be Southern.
Last I saw, they were like on the bubble but leaning out, and that was like
They're down to 77. No, it's Southern California. Never mind. Try that again.
SMU.
Yeah, I was like, that can't be right.
And that was a true road win too.
Yes, yeah, it was. It's been quad 1 for most of the year. Where is it? They're at 41, so that's still a quad 1 win, but they're very much a bubble team. They're 21-8, but they are 0-5 quad 1 and 5-3 quad 2. They're 16-0 quad 3, quad 4.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? They've beaten up on a bunch of nobodies, but when they play good teams, they're 5-8.
Yeah.
So not great. The net is. I wish I had a better understanding of the net, just because I don't. Because I'll tell you, I don't. But like the one thing that strikes me right off the bat is State and Ole Miss. So State and Ole Miss have the same record. They're both 20-9. State is 12-9 quad 1, quad 2. Ole Miss is 11-9. So State has one more quad 1 win, but they have the one quad 2 loss that Ole Miss doesn't have. But State is 2-0 against Ole Miss, and yet Ole Miss is 28 and State is 30th. I want to know. All I want to know is what is the integer? That's a big word for me.
Yeah.
What is the number is it just that State lost to Butler? Because if that's the case, that's weird.
I wish there was an explanation somewhere where you could see exactly how it's calculated.
Exactly.
Maybe there is, and I just haven't seen it.
I don't know where it is.
But it is perplexing on why that is the case.
A&M,
is that like that Alabama win for them? Is that like really...
Well, that's probably a good point. I mean, they have a better win than State does. Alabama is 6th in the net. Mm-hmm. State's best win is Texas A&M, and they have plummeted. That was a top 10 win when it happened. A&M has, they've dropped, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, something like that. They lost to State. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Florida Saturday. I don't know what they did in the midweek last week, but they're down to 24th. So that's on the verge of falling out of quad 1. For State. State's just been kind of unlucky. I feel like when you schedule Utah, SMU, UNLV, Butler, Memphis, and on top of your SEC schedule, you're like, you scheduled pretty well. And it turns out that you just got unlucky because some of those – and Pitt, I forgot about Pitt. Yeah, you're just kind of unlucky in that. So State, 30 in the net as we speak. I mean, I think they'll end up as a 6 seed when this is all said and done.
Yeah,
which is
something like that.
There was a funny thing on a message board. They were talking about, like, statistically, if you're a 5, you have a better chance of making the Sweet 16. But if you're a 6, you have a better chance of making the Elite 8 because you don't play the 1.
Oh.
You play the 1, and you wouldn't play the 1 until the Elite 8. Whereas State's a 5 seed, right? Let's say they advance to the Sweet 16. They're either going to play Alabama or Auburn or Florida or Duke in all likelihood. I mean, who wants to play them? But on the other side of that, playing Tennessee – I know Tennessee beat State, but Tennessee is not a good team away from Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
Houston's they're a good team, but they play the kind of basketball I think State can match up with. Teams like that, you feel like a lot better about your chances in those games.
Yeah, so someone was asking me the other day, in I guess either the SEC tournament or maybe even NCAA tournament too,
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather play, if you're State, would you rather play Alabama or Auburn? And I was like, I don't think it matters.
It does not matter.
It doesn't matter.
100%
I
agree
guess
with you.
Auburn maybe, but I don't know. Because of the history with Alabama.
Jans has just not been able to do anything.
Doesn't match.
He's been, you think about it, they beat Auburn last year here in Starkville. And of course, you lost to them badly this year. That was without Broom. So I don't know. I think the answer to your question is you'd rather not play either one of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think you want to play Florida either.
No.
Your best case scenario is, gosh, I'm trying to think, is to somehow go through like Kentucky to get to Saturday or something like, because Kentucky right now is so
A&M.
beat up with injury. A&M would be one you can match up with. Kentucky's so beat up right now. The guy who had was it Robinson?
Jackson Robinson.
He had all those. He's been hurt.
He's out for the season now.
Oh, he's that's a tough break. I mean, that's a good basketball player. And Kentucky is just an interesting team. When Kentucky's healthy, they can match up with anybody. When they're not, they're pretty easy. And of course, State got the best version of them.
Oh yeah.
So because that's you'll learn as you're on the beat here. So good win for State though on Saturday, and a win they needed to have. This game with Texas, 7:00 tip. Cam Matthews senior night. I remember back in 1993 when he came to Mississippi State, just before I did, and
where I was born.
Shut your mouth. Shut up over there. But yeah, Cam Matthews senior night. That's going to be something. And a guy who's given a lot to Mississippi State. We'll talk more about Cam on tomorrow's show with Robbie, who's been here obviously for all five of his years here at Mississippi State. And the legacy of Cam Matthews. We'll talk a little bit more about that on tomorrow's show. But good win for State. Again, it's been weird to talk about. I feel like they need to win this game when I've known they've been locked in the tournament since they beat Ole Miss. And I feel like mentally this team, obviously the Alabama game and the Oklahoma games are not good examples. But I don't feel like this team is mentally just checked out the way I kind of feel about Ole Miss. I feel like Ole Miss, once they won that 8th game, they were just like, we're in. And, they had to, they barely got the win Saturday over Oklahoma. Otherwise, they were going to be looking 6 straight losses right in the face. Instead, they should finish 500. And they could beat Tennessee. Tennessee, as I just said, not a good road team, but we'll see where it goes. All right. Let's move into baseball. It's brought to you by our friends over at Two Brothers Smoke. You've eaten at Two Brothers, right?
I have.
Okay.
Great spot.
Great spot. Yes, it absolutely is. What about the older brother?
Haven't been there yet.
All right. We'll get that next week. We'll get that next week.
Yes.
So when you're in Starkville, Two Brothers Smoke Meats and the Older Brothers, 2 great places to go right there on top of each other in the Cotton District. The Cotton District is booming right now. A lot of great stuff happening right there. Two Brothers is the hub of the Cotton District and has been since it opened up. We love to go there. Robbie and I are always there. Sam is there. What more can you ask for? Two Brothers Smoke Meats in the heart of the Cotton District. Great products, great service. Every business likes to promise it to you. They deliver it to you at Advantage Business Systems. That's what they've been doing for 50 years.
This is where I say 50,
yes,
right?
Yes.
50.
Yeah. When you need technology. This is where I say 50, right? Yes. I was wondering if I was going to have to coax you into it or anything.
I'm a long-time listener.
Appreciate you.
First-time caller.
Yeah. Something like that. You need to send a rumblings question one week and really seal the deal.
Yeah.
Whatever you're looking for technology for your business, Advantage Business Systems will take care of you. Great name brands, great prices on the merchandise, but more importantly, the service after the sale that you really need. When something goes wrong with with a copier, you can't afford to wait around a week, 10 days for somebody to show up and fix that. You need it fixed immediately. That's why you need to do business with people like Advantage Business Systems. 601-362-9192 or visit them online, absms.com. Find out how Advantage Business Systems will help your business do business. Before you go to your next game here in Starkville, and, the basketball, the last one this week, we got some home baseball this week. If you're going to be here, make a trip to Maroon & Co. and grab yourself some great new MSU gear. They've got the biggest and best selection of all the places in Starkville to get it. They are number one in terms of selection. And best of all, you can use our promo code Thunder15 to save 15% off any regular price item. Some exclusions do apply, although I'm still looking for those exclusions. I still have not seen what they are. They're right there for you at Maroon & Co. All right, Mississippi State baseball. Not a good weekend. Not a good week for the Diamond Dogs. They go 1-2 out there in the tournament. The mantra that I'm hearing on message boards and social media is that when they play good teams, they lose. They've played 4 teams that we would think will be NCAA tournament teams: Southern Miss, Troy, Arizona, Oklahoma State. They're 0-4. Mm-hmm. They played great on Friday. Fantastic baseball. Run rule Rice. Rice, as we learned in this tournament, not a good team. Arizona and Oklahoma State, basically they played the same game back-to-back days. They fall behind early. Their starter can't get out of the first, second, third inning, and then they are able to mount a little bit of a comeback, but it's not enough, and they drop both of those games. I think that one of the two big stories of the weekend were obviously Ligon and Simmons not being able. Ligon is, I don't think, much longer for the rotation. I would be really surprised if Pruitt's not starting for him on Saturday. I don't know about Simmons just yet. Simmons was victimized by some bad defense, but he also made some bad pitches, gave away some walks, didn't pitch particularly well. But I feel like State has a lot of quality arms, and they are doing themselves a disservice right now with Ligon, especially Ligon on Saturdays, but Simmons a little bit on Sunday. If they could figure this out and get the right guys starting, I think they would take off a little bit. As it is, they're sitting here with 4 losses. They're kind of in the same spot they were a year ago. The only difference is this time a year ago, they had 4 bad losses. They had lost 2 to Austin Peay. They had lost 1 to Georgia Southern. They lost 1 to Air Force. Now you've lost 14. I feel like your RPI isn't really suffering a lot, but at the same time, you need to be winning these games if you want to host. You watched all 3 games, obviously, this weekend as much as you could, with the Saturday, with the basketball. Yeah, well, I mean, with basketball, what can you do?
Yeah.
But what did you think? What did you think of this team? What are your early impressions of this team? Me and Robbie have told everybody what we think. What do you think about this team early on?
Yeah, I think the point about how they've they're 0-4 against teams with a 500 record or better, and 7-0 against everyone else is kind of telling of where this team is right now. And I think that they have a good problem on their hands, is that they have enough pieces. It's just figuring out who fits where, both in the pitching and kind of in the field a little bit too, in the batting lineup, right? And part of that's also like, well, how did you not figure these things out?
Yeah, that's what
in
the
preseason's
for.
In the spring training preseason, like what was going on there that these things didn't translate or something like that. And I think they're going to be fine. I think it's a long season, and so every team kind of has ruts at different points in the year, and maybe this is just when States is right now. But they did lose to some good teams, and Southern Miss is playing really well. They just went and won 2 out of 3 games at TCU this weekend, so they're going to be coming in with a lot of confidence on Tuesday, and so that's another opportunity where it's a big win for either team. Whoever wins that game, it's going to be a big win.
The A&M game with Rice just ended. Rice got run ruled in all 3 games.
They're terrible.
They're really bad. You're not old enough to remember this. That used to be a really good program.
I've heard.
Yeah, and they won a national title early 2000s. You remember Lance Berkman, I know, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, man. You don't remember him playing for the Astros?
No.
Oh, my Lord. Try again. You seen the movie?
You seen?
Yeah.
I wasn't like a huge MLB guy.
Okay.
Up. Like I'm from Minnesota, obviously, so I grew up watching the Twins, but like the Twins,
not great in the early, when you were
kind of just the same thing every year. So.
Okay.
I was always a basketball, hockey, football guy. More.
Are you a wild guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Big wild guy.
All right. So it's like, you've seen the movie Dazed and Confused. Have you seen that?
No.
No, of course not. So
haven't seen it. I'm not.
For those of you who are listening, it's like these beat writers to me are like the girls for Wooderson. Like, I get older, they stay the same age. It's like every time I look up, there's another 24-year-old walking in the door. Like, hey, I don't get any of your references.
Right. That's me.
Yeah. The other story of the weekend was Hunter Hines. Got benched. Didn't play Friday or Saturday. Plays on Sunday. Hitless. This is a real issue for State because, for me, I know Lamonis, and I know that he is a loyal guy. He's going to give Hines every possible opportunity to get out of this. But, man, the early returns on this guy are not very promising. And you mentioned it, State's still trying to figure out things in their lineup. They want Garrick Fry's bat in the lineup, but the guy is, we'll just say he's not a plus fielder.
No.
We'll be nice about it. They're trying to figure out what to do there on the infield. This is a team that I agree with what you said, that the pieces are there. And you can see, like, man, if they put everybody in the right place and everybody's pulling the rope in the right direction, this is a team that can win a lot of baseball games. But we're 4 weeks in. We are next weekend. There's SEC games being played. Mississippi State will host Texas, and that's real baseball that you've got to win those games. And I just don't know what we're a month into the season, and I don't know what this team is. I don't really know what they are.
No, you've had like these mini spurts of different players all playing well, for like 2-3 games at a time. Ace Reese kind of has had a nice stretch here
Yeah,
recently. He had
played really well in
was it
Texas.
three home runs this weekend, 2 home runs this
He had
weekend.
well, I know he had 2 on Saturday and 1 on Friday. So yeah,
Yeah, so he's been playing well.
mm-hmm.
Today, Reed Stallman hits two
Couple of
home
bombs.
runs.
Yeah,
One of them, I don't even think like you could see it on the TV, like where it
yeah,
landed.
he crushed
It
it.
went
Yeah,
so far, we had no idea where it went, but apparently it was a home run. And you know,
the guy who tweeted at you was like, "That sounds like my golf game." That made me laugh.
oh right,
That was funny. Like it's in the trees somewhere.
So yeah, you just drop it and kick
Yeah.
it, and yeah, but it's just so hard. I think Lucas Buckner there was a little bit where he was kind of looking
Yeah.
like a piece, and then we haven't really seen much of him lately. And the Hunter Hines thing, and this is just because I'm new around here.
Mm-hmm.
I started in September, wasn't here for the first 3 seasons of
Right.
Hunter Hines' career, but it was amazing to me how he's been a starter pretty much every single game that he's been here at State,
Mm-hmm.
except for now I think 3 games his entire career.
Yeah.
But it seems like he had a sort of short leash this season. I mean, we're only now 11 games in,
Mm-hmm.
but that Troy game
Was
where
rough.
You leave 9 batters on base.
And I was surprised, Sam, that
individually.
the first move wasn't just to push him down in the lineup. It was they took him out. Like I thought Friday, maybe he bats like 7th or 8th and see what happens. They did that today on Sunday. He batted, I think, 7th and still couldn't get it figured out. He's just it just feels like at this point when you've got a player, the old saying in baseball is if you got a bunch of seniors on your team, you're probably not very good because those guys could have been drafted 3 times already,
Yeah, in
and they're
college.
still here. So with Hines, it's like I know there's a good player in there. I've seen that guy. He was great as a freshman and sophomore, but it's just he just plateaued, and I don't know what we're going to get out of Hunter Hines this season.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting that he sat for 2 games and not 1 game.
Yeah,
Like I haven't heard or seen if Lamonis has specifically talked about that and why it was 2 games.
I'm going to ask on Monday.
At first I thought it was just going to be 1 game because
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens. And then he didn't play again Saturday, so I'm like, oh, maybe they're just going to sit him the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's back in the lineup on Sunday. So I don't really know what the reasoning was behind that. Maybe it was some sort of matchup thing too was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know, but that I thought that was kind of interesting. And I think this happens in baseball somewhat frequently where guys get kind of in ruts. You go and watch a game from the dugout, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We've seen that before many times here at Mississippi State. There have been guys who gets off to slow starts. You give them a day off. The next thing you know, they're right back in the lineup. They're fine.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't think it's fair to sound the alarms on Hunter Hines and think he's can't
Right.
be in this lineup, for the rest of the season. He'll work it out, I think.
Yeah.
But how long that takes is going to be, what going to be very interesting to see.
If there's one positive to take away from there's a couple. The State hit the ball okay. They couldn't get off to fast starts, but in the later innings all weekend, they had the big final inning against Rice to put the run rule through, and they had the big final couple innings there with Arizona and Oklahoma State that got them back into the game. That's a positive. The other positive is obviously Pico Khan, who has through 3 games has been as good as any pitcher in college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested because we keep talking about they haven't played anybody. Pico played Rice, so he still hasn't really pitched against a great team. He won't next week when they play Queens. It's going to be Friday the 14th when they play Texas before he really takes on a great opponent. But he looks the part at least of an every weekend Friday night guy.
Oh yeah, he's the one player on the team that there's just no need to
Yeah.
worry or
We don't have to worry about that.
even debate much really about him, I think. And so he's been phenomenal. I think the bullpen's been pretty
Been pretty
decent,
good.
too.
They've got some pieces there. I like Grant. I see the potential with Grant.
Mhm.
I think McPherson is good. I think Nate Williams is very good. I like him a lot. Hungate is the kind of change of pace guy that every good bullpen has a guy like that. Who just throws junk. Who's like he changes speeds by throwing slower. That's every bullpen. Every good team has a guy like him. And then you got a couple other intriguing pieces there as well. I loved what I saw from Pruitt on Tuesday. And I really think they'll move him into the weekend rotation. I think if you made me guess, and I was talking to Robbie about this, Tuesday they'll probably start Foster against Southern Miss, assuming that game happens. It's looking like we may have some severe weather that day. But you probably start Foster in that game, you pull Pruitt out of the midweek, save him for Saturday, and then go Pico, Pruitt, and then I don't know if you give Stone another go round or not.
I feel like you do just because of the injury circumstance, and pitchers have bad games. It happens.
Yeah,
especially a Sunday starter.
Yeah,
they're going to have a couple games that just.
Again, if you have a couple of defensive miscues behind him too that maybe get him out of that inning, and you don't, it's not as bad. You might give him one more shot.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell you that going back to the start of the season, I was surprised that Stone Simmons was a starter. I thought he would be a big piece in the bullpen. That's what he was in 22 when he got hurt. He was really looking good as the state's closer in that season, and to move him to the starting rotation, I was very surprised by that move. I'm less out on him. With Ligon, I'm out. You can't go forward like that.
So I don't fully understand the Ligon part either because I wasn't here last season.
Yeah,
but it seems like people are giving him a short leash too right now
because he's a guy who came in. When you come in he came in from Miami,
right? And
that's a school where they play high level baseball, right? So he should have been able to come in and adapt to what State's doing immediately, and he just was never consistent. And State just has a guy, it seems, every year that throws 98 but can't command it. And you go back to the College World Series year with Eric Sarantola. They had Andrew Walling, who transferred in from Oregon State. I mean, you're talking about a left-hander throwing 96, 97. You're like, that's a guy you can build around, but he could not put it together here at Mississippi State. And now it's Ligon. It doesn't make it. What is it? Nobody cares how hard you throw ball for. I mean, that's what he is right now. He throws 98, but it's not over the plate. It's not in the zone. And so, that's when they're just going to have to move on from. So, not a great week for Mississippi State. I would expect them to drop out of the polls as we sit here on a Sunday evening, but we'll see if that happens or not. They may hang around at 25th or something like that. I expect Southern Miss to jump up. I expect Ole Miss to jump up. So, very interesting year in the state of Mississippi for baseball. It always is, but this year has got a little extra flavor maybe we weren't expecting. Because Ole Miss is obviously better than we thought they were going to be.
They've been surprisingly good.
So this is a guy sitting across from me who predicted State to beat Ole Miss 4 out of 4 games this year. You still feel good about that prediction?
I forgot about that now that you bring it up. I probably would have meant that prediction if I had the chance to.
Yeah. Well, that's the good news.
They haven't played yet.
All you got to do is delete that other article and or edit it. And what are you talking about? It's right there. Nobody screenshotted that. Don't worry. Don't you worry about that. All right. Sam, I appreciate you coming in tonight. Thank you very much. Needed. I did not want to do a podcast by myself when there's 2 games to recap. That'd have been like 20 minutes to be going, yeah, they were pretty good. And that wouldn't have been it. So appreciate you coming in. We will get you to lunch at Restaurant Tyler this week. We'll make that happen.
I should.
Guys, Robbie will be back tomorrow. Plenty to talk about. We'll preview Mississippi State's 2 big games on Tuesday, Southern Miss in baseball and Texas in basketball. Plus, we may talk a little women's basketball tomorrow's show when Robbie's back. State getting the win over Auburn. Should punch their ticket?
I think so.
Should.
They were like the last 4 in before this game. So
we'll see. They play Missouri in the SEC tournament. If they win that game, they'll play Ole Miss. Another SEC tournament win probably would not hurt their resume, especially against a Missouri team that beat them earlier this season. So we'll talk about all that on Tuesday's show. Again, thanks to Sam. We appreciate him coming in. For Sam Sklar, I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for listening to Thunder and Lightning here on Super Talk, Mississippi.